So it's interesting. Now, so if it's a larger panel, would you say there's more time involved in that,
Absolutely.
or would you say the gravitas of that moment
Oh, no,
is
no,
more
no.
important?
I think much more the first than the second.
Really?
Yeah, I think gravitas is goes right to the idea of melodramatizing a narrative. You can play that, but if you're doing a continuity narrative, I mean, I believe there are three basic streams of comic book storytelling. The first, it's Eisner, it's Kurtzman, and it's Kirby Lee. In the beginning is Eisner. Eisner invents everything. He really does. He's the first guy who, and not, laterally, when I was a comic book collector, I collected Golden Age comics when they were still affordable. I never collected anything but DC because the Marvel looks sort of crappy, and I wasn't aware of the quality books, which is where Eisner was. And Eisner at quality, working with Bob Powell, Chuck Codera, Reed Crandall, Alex Kotsky, Lou Fine, created, synergized, brought over from newspaper strips what a comic book page was. He was the one. Everybody who was doing comics at that point may have drawn in a crude attempt to imitate Milton Caniff, those kids, Kubert, Infantino, Kane. But they were exploding a narrative that derived directly from Eisner, including Kirby. Mm-hmm. If you look at the Newsboy Legion pages, they were a crude attempt to equal what Eisner was doing at quality. Jack Cole, all these guys. And it isn't until Kurtzman comes along in the early 50s that he see that, and what Eisner was doing was action in melodrama. Kurtzman comes along and introduces an utterly objective, detached, almost journalistic approach to narrative. The war books at EC are utterly bloodless in their observance of carnage, and they acknowledge the existence of you as a reader, but they don't care about making you feel good about what you're looking at. There's a wonderful story called The Big If. There's another one called Corpse on the Imjin. You must find these. You must make yourself aware of this. And there's also a fabulous piece called Rubble, which had a huge influence on me. Rubble is a 7-page story about a Korean family building a house from scratch. And what happens? It's phenomenal. And it's done as a form of a ballad.
Now, where would you find these? These were the old school EC comics?
Yeah. These are in Frontline Combat and Two-Fisted Tales. You owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
You will, if you have eyes. I'm serious, and it takes eyes to see this material, because if you're moved only by sensation, you will not be moved. Mm-hmm. This work is a very sophisticated work. It's extremely adult work. And it's astonishing.
Yeah, and eyes are taught as well. It's something that's interesting, because I never thought I had eyes until people were like, "No, you've hung out with people enough and gone through enough pages that you understand the dissection of how these things are working."
Well, it's like, when I was all of us kids hated Mike Sekowsky. We just loathed Mike Sekowsky. He did the Justice League. Why can't he draw like Gil? But as an adult, you look at Mike Sekowsky stuff and you realize this guy's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the third school is Kirby Lee, and I say this because what happened with Kirby Lee is when Jack starts working with Stan, and Stan realizes what he has in Jack, because Jack was not Stan's first choice for favorite. That was Joe Maneely. What he finds in Jack is Jack starts delivering pages, panels get fewer and fewer, okay? And he ceases to be an action artist. It becomes almost entirely about the moment of impact, okay? And what you have now, to a profound and frightening degree, is people attempting to achieve Kirby Lee effect with Eisner technique, ignoring the Kurtzmanness of it all, okay? So my job at Marvel was to teach these people this concept of the vocabulary. And at that time, Marvel was becoming a much more visually conservative company. Marvel has always been more socially conservative than DC. Not really, but in terms of its perception. Mm-hmm. People always thought that Stan was a liberal, but he really wasn't. Stan was an Eisenhower Republican. And I think Marvel was blindsided recently by finding out how much more socially conservative their audience really is. But they were also very hard on people like me, who were doing more abstract takes on organizing the page. For example, Steranko has had a 3 or 4 year career. That's pretty much it.
I mean, he had a much longer career in my opinion, but
how long did he work in comics?
Well,
he did 4 years, about 4 years of work
for Marvel.
Yeah, profoundly influential.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would let Jim get away with half of the stuff he got away with today, because the audience is perceived as not having the eyes to see and identify what he was doing effectively. Okay, that there's a tremendous impulse on the part of both Marvel and to a certain but slightly lesser extent at DC to simplify the material in the name of an audience that doesn't bring enough to the table.